Hi, everybody. And yes, I've been away for a bit. The reason being that work has been very busy. We're now in a post-COVID world where travel is the thing to do again. So I've been on the road quite a lot in trains and planes and automobiles, so to speak. Um, it's with mixed feelings that I go back on the road as frequently as I have. And so at first, I was going to talk about my experiences in travel and how I feel about it. And then after I listened to myself using the word tired 37 times, I figured people would grow tired of me talking about it that way. So instead, I thought what I would do is recall one of my past travel experiences that was particularly memorable. And perhaps that would be a way to um, communicate to you the feeling that all of this, what to me is excessive travel, um, produces, at least in me. Your mileage will vary, and I wish that all of your travels will be maybe as fruitful and maybe more energizing rather than enervating that they are to me. Anyway, once upon a time, stories should start that way. Back after the 2000s, before 2010, I was working for a company, consultancy that was smaller. We had fewer than 100 people, most of them in the US, a few international. And our business had gotten a new president and CEO. And that person was bent on wanting to see all of our bright and shining happy faces, just like our clients want to see our bright and shiny happy faces, which is why we go on the road. So he had arranged for all of us to meet going through Dulles Airport to a training center and training and conference center, a large venue where the small number of us are just going to be bumping around there. But it was rented out at a time of year where things were really quiet, and um, therefore they got a cheap rate, always important when it's a smaller business. And this new president of the company and I were not off to a good start. That is, one of the things that he did when he first got on board was to ping each of the consultants and challenge them on particular things. And so he was trying to put wedges in and see if people had the strength, the stubbornness, or how they would respond when challenged. And I can I can tell you that my response to that was pretty poor. That is, he called me up out of the blue on a project that I had put together and challenged me on particular things on which I was firm in my position and views, and they were correct. And therefore, we had a rather unproductive back and forth where this feller, who was a former Green Beret, was trying to poke holes in the logic that I had put together. And I was throwing it back at him directly about how this position and the rationale behind it was completely and thoroughly correct, and that his positions did not have merit. Um, you could call it TI demon, or you could just say it's those darn INFPs, but it really cheesed me off for someone to challenge me in a place where I was correct, because the intent to do something like that is not collaborative. It's simply to be problematic for the sake of it. And so we were, to get back to the start, we were not off to a good start. So the day comes that we're supposed to go down, and the weather is just atrocious. It's cold and heavy, heavy rain. The plane does make it out of the leafy suburbs, the city next to our leafy suburbs here in the Northeast. We land at Dulles Airport. It's an absolute downpour. And I remember looking out of the seat that was just in front of the wing and watching the vortices of water swirling around on the concrete as we were taxied and waiting for our gate to open, where there were these, like I said, vortices of water and that were kicking up around the jet engines as we were sitting waiting for the gate, taxiing. It was an atrocious weather day. So to go from that then to a single taxi to get to this remote location, it was dreary. It was misery. And we finally arrived at the place, and it is true to its word as being a training and conference center for large businesses, us being a rather small business. It was a massive building. And when we got to the front desk, I was given instructions as to how to get to my room, and it led through a series of underground corridors to get into the complex. Those corridors, having been built maybe in the 1970s, being indifferently clean and featureless, covered overhead by fluorescent lighting that has that particular hum and that particular kind of oppressive dimness on top of that low pressure area. So walking through these entirely empty, long, dark underground corridors with nothing but the hum of fluorescent lights, trying to make my way with my packs to a particular room, finding my way out of that part of this Byzantine place, and then getting above ground into the main complex, which was 1970s style poured concrete brutalism. A massive structure with just mazes and mazes of corridors and rooms and conference locations and open halls. And at one point, getting to my room, I was walking through maybe the third or fourth floor of a concrete corridor that went over a massive open space. And looking down, you could see these enormous machines that had been completely taken apart with the electronics kind of strewn all over the place. And it looked like something out of a, well, I'll put it in the link. There's a particular Swedish artist that kind of merges machinery with nature and has these kind of surreal pictures. Well, it's not the nature part, but it was very surreal to look down in this grand space and just see at the bottom story these giant machines just completely taken apart with parts strewn everywhere. That then led to a claustrophobic series of corridors, and then finally to a brightly colored door, which was my room. And that room was, let's say, dormitory-like. It was very small, extremely cramped. There was one single window in this poured concrete box. That small window looked out over this idyllic natural scene, of course, with the heavy rain, but trees and grass, and it was a beautiful thing to see, and it was completely inaccessible. It might as well have been, it was like being in a prison. And in fact, the place where we were staying, the training center, was nicknamed by our gang after a while the Gulag, because it was just, it was beyond belief that, kind of the best 1970s pseudo-military or late Soviet era bunkery housing and public spaces that one could possibly imagine. So I get into my little room, and it looks like it's sort of hastily constructed with a nice kind of bright and cheery veneered pressboard desk, a little tiny single bed, very small bathroom, just enough for those things that one needs, plus a television. And I did what I always do when I arrive at a place and I have a bit of spare time, which is I make a beeline for the bed and just lie down for a while and try to recuperate from the experience of travel. So I was lying there and decided that, as long as I'm here, I may as well play something on the television. I don't have cable at home. I don't really watch much, but as long as I'm vegging out, there might be something worthwhile. So I'll turn it on and start going through the channels. And the one thing I could find was a documentary that was interviewing serial killers. So here I was in this place, uh, after having traveled all this way, exhausted, watching this um, pretty awful uh, or sobering set of very dark interviews while in a cramped little box, um, after having made my way through this Byzantine series of corridors, to then, in this oppressive evening. And, well, it gives you an idea of, well, I haven't had experiences that quite match up with that. There have been other experiences that have been similarly odd or had their moments of oddity. So my traveling days, even though I see them as valuable, they're important, they also they take something out of me. And they may take something out of you as well. I hope that your travel is maybe less uh, less dreary than what I've just described, but it does give an idea of why I have mixed feelings on that sort of thing. And by the way, as a footnote, that boss and I never really got along, but we both very much grew to respect one another, which is an interesting mix of perspectives. That on the one hand, it's like, oh, I really do not get along with that person. However, I also greatly respect that person, and whatever they would ask me to do, I would do because he understands that I have a particular mission that I'm trying to fill, and I understand that he is on his purpose in trying to fill his particular mission. And both of us were fairly singular minded and each in our own way, very differently stubborn, equally stubborn about it. And smartly, he and I both spent most of our time avoiding each other. And then when we did speak, it was only on very particular things, when something specific needed to be done. And then, it would get done because we are both adults and we, in that respect, in terms of having a shared purpose, saw eye to eye. So I would say that that piece of it was a success. And the experience of being with all those people, I wouldn't trade for anything. So I've rambled long enough. I hope that you may have gotten something out of this, if just entertainment, and that wherever you may be, that all your travels may be less draining and more interesting and perhaps more exciting, and also with enrichment and purpose. And with that, I'll say bye for now.